Welcome to the Strategic Oracle, the transmission space where timing meets soul and wealth begins with the rhythm. Let's begin. I am so excited because I am here with Joy, one of my favorite people in the world, Joy Osaka-Lu. She's the CEO of One Ripple, and she is a functional mystic and she's a solution strategist. And what that means is she brings your visions to life, and she does it in a way that is so incredibly impactful. You know, she's shifting paradigms, but she's ensuring that you stay true to you and that you are through storied artifacts and through like the geode prism of light, like making sure that your soul impact is the through line, not all the stuff that's going on. And she's an operations person, so she has the brass tacks, but not in the way you think and not in the way that it does work. Let me say that. So Joy, welcome.
Hi, it's so good to be with you. I'm been looking forward to hanging out with you and having a conversation. They're always universally paradigm shifting and a lot of fun, which the big work, in my humble opinion, should always be fun.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So just for everybody that's listening, just realize that Joy and I were having the most delicious conversation, as we do the minute we get into the room. And so we're having this delicious conversation. I'm like, I should record this because all this stuff is gold. We've hit record now. I did the proper thing I introduced, but we've been talking about how, yes, we're in this quote unquote new era. It's new energy. I'll be honest with you, for the two of us, it isn't new. We just waited for the world to catch up. So here we are. What do we want to talk about first, do you think, Joy?
Well, I feel like this 2025 has been such a roller coaster of a ride, actually. So many things are happening constantly. And for your listeners, I know they're all old souls, and perhaps this is just very interesting for them to watch. And I know a lot of people are becoming untethered. No one here listening, of course, your audience, but it's sweet and tender in the sense that I am marveling at the human spirit of how we're watching the collapse of a civilization. And, some people are getting dusty and having the debris hit them in the face. Well, the old souls are just knowing and completely staying whole. Their energy is defined and are these ripple makers of the calm that is possible when there's immense transformation and destruction and collapse that happens. It's quite beautiful to see. And um what is a little bit bothersome is that all of us, regardless if we're emerging or an old soul, are experiencing some of this change on the ground, in our lives. And um, what I love particularly about your book is that it does encourage and support us to stay centered, stay grounded, because that's where all the good stuff is happening. And, if we can make it at least enjoyable and fun and elevating, where we're able to grow and expand, I think that is really, the power that I saw in your book. And yeah, it's just good times. At times, sure, it's just but it is in the big picture. I think all of us are doing really well.
I do too. It's so interesting for me because, I mean, this is the purpose of the book. The book is to explain, for those of you who have followed me for a while, you would have heard some of these things. You've heard me for years talk about the new era. You've heard me for years talking about the feminine, the masculine energies and how they were inside out and how to like move the feminine from the inside to the outside, put the masculine on the inside, all my cosmic, what have you, and earthly whatevers, and I'm being a little cheeky here on purpose because it's not to get hung up on that.
Right.
What it is to recognize that you are at the center. And so what Joy and I were talking before we hit record for this episode, we were talking about that the beauty of the fact that, yes, things can be happening all around you, but you don't change.
Right.
You are the throughput of your soul, of your life, of you're the co-creator of it. And so we were joking around about, when this episode airs, it's going to be the book will have passed and, what have you. We're going to be like at the end of July-ish, I think. And I was joking with Joy about how none of my systems are working, right? Anybody who's followed me forever knows that tech never works for me. And that's just the story that's there. And I'm like, meh, the book launches a day. That's not the important part. The important part is the message of the book, is each reader of the book, is the fact that the book is living in the world now to be that one ripple. I use your words, Joy, right? Like, and to have the impact, if it just creates one moment of calm for you every day for a month, that's the ball game.
Yeah, completely. I mean, that is, um, that's everything to stay whole and to stay centered, because I think most of us know that, in our businesses or in our lives, in our relationships, we have such a tremendous hand in this perpetual effect that we have on the world. And we wanna make it somewhat coherent and a true reflection of who we are. So, being not mindful, but I wanna say even not even having to think about it. Like,
Mm.
I love what you said about your systems not working and, not being attached or pulled off center by it. It's kind of humorous, a little bit irritating, which is normal, but it's not devastating to you because you have that bigger picture of this is into perpetuity. This is, um, a way to stay calm and grounded and a way to move through business without losing yourself or getting burnt out or overgiving or doubting yourself. It's not being aloof. It's not being, under the covers or being, an ostrich. It's being fully immersed in what's going on and, being okay with it while still taking action to move forward. And that's the thing around the new era, or what we're calling the new era, but, how you and I have operated in the world is that, um we just keep moving and it's everything can be used in a but when we look at it from a benevolence perspective or lens of this is helping me um get more well defined in my refined instinct or my intuition or my trust, all of these things that are the true commodity of what the new era is asking us to step into. And, some of us have lived our entire lives in such a way which might have made me an outlier for so long, when I was in corporate and investment management and financial services for over 3 decades. I mean, I was the weirdo and, frankly, I didn't care. I didn't care what other people thought. And that was a differentiator. And now, with all of your followers and your audience, it's this finally our time, what a relief.
Mm.
And not having to explain it. We just show up. Our presence is such that through line that you have mentioned is the thing that is the commodity, is, if you wanted to think of it in that way. But it really is the thing that leads our energy, does our heavy lifting for us when we embrace that and we know it and we don't have to explain it because people, the veil, quote unquote, the veil is thinning and their spidey senses are catching that and they're going to wonder why we're so calm. And that automatically, in times of chaos, makes us a leader. And we don't have to like muscle our way into that role. We just are. So it's beautiful. And I love everything that your book stands for. I love your work and your presence and the way that you connect the soil to the stars by bringing it into our bodies, because that is our navigational map. It's our energy inside of us and where we operate and where we create. So, yeah, everything's lining up perfectly.
I totally agree. I know. I am super excited. And of course, for those who are impacted, quote unquote, I'm just using the air quotes right now, for people who can't see the video, is that there are things that are happening that don't feel delicious, that aren't really smooth, that can feel overwhelming or frustrating or what have you. And the key isn't that those things don't happen. The key is how you respond versus you react, right? So everything I talk about with the stars, I do the stars so that people have the mind candy, so that they can know what's going on, so that their minds can be, occupied about, oh, so Jupiter just went into Cancer or Uranus is going into Gemini, and this is what it means, blup, 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 right? And that can create some predictability and some certainty, so the mind calms down. But the key, I love how you said that, is like how they're living in your body, like how you're making decisions, how you're responding to situations, and knowing that ability to say, of course, all my tech systems are down. Of course, Insta has kicked me out and I can't get in. Of course, we're going to add this to the pack of things that aren't working because, TikTok, right? And if I were really attached to a particular circumstance that was date stamped or time stamped or like number stamps from a quantity perspective,
Of
I would be freaking out.
course.
But I'm literally like, of course, right? Like, yep, okay. Because I'm not attached to any of that, because I know that the people who are meant to read the book will read the book.
Right.
It's not about numbers of sales. It's not about a false Amazon bestseller. Like I've been saying everywhere, yes, of course I want the book to sell. I've put a lot of time and money into this book. Of course I'd like to revamp that, but I'm not looking for it to be direct from the book. It will happen because I've made this beautiful energetic outlay. So I'm not concerned about that. I want
Oh,
readers. I want to hear people say, I'm an intuitive visionary and this is what it means. Oh, the magic triangle of cosmic destiny. This is my grand vision. This is what this means. Oh, this is what the new era's energy is supposed to, help us with. And oh, this is what my right strategy is. Those are the words that I want to hear. That's what I'm looking for.
100%. You touched on how I define operations. The majority of my corporate career was in, operations, data management, project management, regulatory compliance, and all of that, which I would not choose those as my given profession, but that's not what I was focusing on. I was looking at how I did things and underneath that why I was doing that. So everything in my mind has an operational component, because the how to me means more than the what you're doing. And again, because that is centered in, who you are, who I am, and how true in my integrity could I stay to that essence, regardless of what I was doing day to day, and whatever uncertainty or unexpected surprises would greet me in the office, because corporate's like that. There's a new fire every day, and could I stay whole and stay true to how I was doing things, which was a deep love at a soul level for all the associates in the firm that I worked for. I didn't want to get emails from somebody at 3 a.m. for the quarterly Excel sheet with data. I wanted them to be able to enjoy their lives, and not work. So, of course, looking for efficiency, effectiveness, and accuracy, but doing so in a way where when I was changing systems, it wasn't so much the system, it was the mindset. The mindset and the constellation that people were carrying around with them, that did not allow them to be free and to do their best work, because they were so concerned with the reputation management or the next quarter's review, all the numbers and the metrics and all that stuff that doesn't mean anything. and didn't serve, ultimately our clients. So, transforming that fear and scarcity energy in corporate into something where we could actually have fun while doing hard things. And what you shared about like not being attached to the tech stuff that's happening because you know that the right people are going to find you without you yelling or having to promote. They're going to sense you in the ethos, and they're going to find you. They're going to do what I did when I found you, and that is I had a very specific energetic frequency when I Googled spiritual business coach or, something to that extent. And you were the top result. And it wasn't Google. I'm not going to give them credit. It was you and I already materializing this conversation that we were having in the ethos or in the astral where we could find each other. And I, I feel that that is really um, what you're calling in. You live by the words and the support that you give your clients. And that is like the new era. And it's beyond serendipity and manifestation, all that kind of crap. It really is a very sophisticated way of operating based on how you take action that is a reflection of your soul. So, everything that's happening right now, all the disruption and all of that is really just an invitation to look at that disruption, but from a different angle. Because, one thing that I always say is that we're moving towards unity without uniformity, meaning that when we look at things, a problem from different angles, instead of being polarized, it's like this we give dignity to everyone's uniqueness. And from there, that liberation of not being judged is where the solutions come from. And being steady and staying whole in those personal disruptions, even though they may seem really unfair, are helping us, stretch and go deeper and higher in who we are. That's all that's happening. And it's a benevolent, albeit doesn't feel like it in the moment. It is the most benevolent way for us to sincerely and genuinely land that in a permanent way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's interesting when you were talking about, I can imagine, younger Joy in corporate. Okay, first of all, I have a big chuckle about that, but right,
Yeah.
because I was also in corporate, right?
Right.
I was in accounting, right? Mrs. Chatty Cathy was in accounting. Were you kidding me right now, right? Like so, like no, like that was a firm no. But what I did was like you, like I knew that I was there for something that I didn't really know, right? Like it was something I wasn't really sure of. Well,
Well,
looking at it through the lens of retrospective, I realized I was there for potential. So my thing has always been like my soul is all about opening the potential. And I
yes.
was doing it at the age of 24, 25, 26 without knowing it. So I would walk into these organizations and it would be, oh, we just bought 3 companies and we're a disaster right now. And we've got 5 accountants and you need to be in accounting even though you don't have an accounting degree. What is happening right now? Literally, I'm in the audit room. Like everybody just realized me in accounting. Like, let's just like picture that and get a good chuckle, right? And then I'm in a room with auditors and I am auditing the $50 million account, which is the biggest account. And I don't even know what accounting is, right?
Right.
So we're in the meeting, we're doing all these things. It's like month 3, I've been working with the auditors, and all of a sudden I say something really, really naive, like really naive, but it's a huge epiphany for me, right? And everybody laughs, and I'm like, now I can look back on it, and literally I said for any accountants out there, oh, debit is to cash is a good thing. Like, no, like legit, this is something you should know on day 1, and I'm just figuring this thing out and like way into the process, right?
Right.
Why did they give me that role? Like, it doesn't even make any sense that I
Right.
was
Right.
put in that position at all.
Right.
They must have seen like the potential. She's gonna be able to calm the auditors down. She's gonna be able to figure things out. She's gonna be, she's not gonna get all freaked out when she doesn't know something. Clearly, it wasn't a problem for me, right? So But you look at it, and that exact same thing is happening right now, right?
Yeah.
So we could have had, years and combinations of years where we weren't pressed so hard or seemingly so hard. But I'll be honest with you, last 5 years I've been talking about like it's like a diamond being ground, like you are being pressed, or it's the scatter graph where you feel like you're untethered and you don't have your footing, right? It's usually either one or the other, or a combination of both, which is also really confusing.
Sure.
And so I keep telling everybody this isn't the time for our minds. The
No.
minds is what wants the quantity and wants the date and wants the timestamp and wants the expectation met. The heart and soul is giddy with all of this.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, I think I shared with you in one of our conversations was, this very sweet, benevolent definition of the ego, which was, it's simply there to prevent people from getting lost in the infinite versus, all the other definitions that, are floating around or have been floating around for a very long time. And this notion of human old era or maybe more directive, diminishing human constructs are dissolving right before our eyes. And being able to see it from that perspective of you're still holding it together, you still show up every day. It may not feel that terrific. Um, but honestly, you're not doing it alone. 2020
Mm.
was such a humongous collective threshold that we walk through the, personification of of COVID, yet, I don't I've not met one person who was like, "Yeah, I'm not changed," like, "Same old, same old." I've not met
Right.
one who said that. There's this and it's not a dent that I'm seeing when people are like, "Yeah, that was a big deal." It's again a very tender, honest, sweet muttering of like, "Yeah, that was pretty tough," or "I never had to sit alone, um, with other people around me during lockdown. That was really tough. I didn't know how to operate without the old paradigm of power of bossing people around. I had to trust my team that they were going to still, accomplish things even though I wasn't breathing down their neck." And this, it's humility without, what is it? Being, diminished. It was really interesting to see a lot of old constructs burn away in the body, in people's psyches. And now I still feel like a lot of people are both congealing what that means now
Mhm.
and picking from this the scatter plot, that you mentioned, all the different potentials in the universe, and everyone and maybe it's because I'm hanging out with startups and entrepreneurs, but everyone is self-defining what that means to them and giving, frankly, 0 fucks about what other people think, because they've already got this baseline of what it means to be human.
Mm.
When you have that, you're not going to do anything that does harm to anybody else. There can be articulations that look different that may seem contrarian to that, but when you look underneath the surface, you can see people are really doing the best that they can in emerging into what that means for them. And as leaders, which is everybody in your audience, the ones who are staying calm and whole are holding that frequency for everyone else who may still be emerging and floundering around fairly ungracefully, without judging them. And I think it's really beautiful to see that unfold.
I do too, and what I adore about our conversations, Joy, is that I think we remind at least you remind me, and when I come into these conversations, I remind myself that although you can read the news or you could look at the bigger kind of messaging that's out there, people are inherently good. right? When you look at your neighbor and you look at the people you're talking to every day and you look at the people that you've drawn into your life, you haven't drawn people into your life that are malevolent or that are disruptive in a way that is destabilizing to others, that are unkind or disrespectful or unethical or fraudulent, right?
Right,
Like, and so I had a conversation earlier today that, the person was talking about the just the disruption that, seems to be hindering, quote unquote people, because I don't think it's hindering people, but it's hindering industries, it's hindering, economic levers, it's hindering, if we're looking at exchange through from a geopolitical landscape, but that isn't real. Like
right,
those things aren't even like remotely real.
right,
And so when you look at what's happening, I remind people, yes, but what's happened to your client roster? What's
right,
happened to your paycheck? What's happened to your bank account? And sometimes it's like, yeah, eggs are $8. Like that's real. Other
right.
than that, none of the other things have changed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, um, I love your reflection about the goodness in human beings, and I would say even if somebody is doing something that looks not not right or not peaceful, when I could almost guarantee if you were to chat with them, you would see some kind of unmet need that didn't have the maturity of being articulated in a different way. And again, there would be that tenderness of, I don't want to do this, but I'm so frustrated, and this is the only way that I can get it out. I don't have any other ways of doing that. Um, and this journey that we're on right now is really, us moving through that with that knowing that's coming to the forefront that people are essentially really good and we all want the same things. We're just so much more alike than we are different when we don't give our awareness to the narratives that are out there, but instead the one that is speaking to us internally.
Right.
um, and that's like the shortcut or the straight line into, um, finding the solutions that may be external disruptions because the life is happening in between people or with people. It's not happening in an economic concept. It's, you know, how we're dealing, how we're showing up, how we're connecting with this essence of like open palms of how can I help?
Yeah.
And when you have that vulnerability and the courage to do that, it opens up people automatically of I can help or
Yeah.
I would need or that's so interesting. There's always this conversation without agendas of like, yeah, I'm gonna talk with you for a sale. It's more like sharing and in an intelligent way. And of course, it can be very strategic, but strategy at the energetic level doesn't lock down the objective. It lets the objective or the goal to unfold in a way that feels beautiful. Uh,
Hmm.
and, given the space, things happen quicker
Yes.
in a much more light way. And, we don't have to massage it as much as we, are being asked to trust ourselves and to trust what feels beautiful. And, that's the new confidence. It's not performative, it is loving yourself in a very deep and genuine way that undoes this notion of being self centered that has been weaponized against us and separated us from our magic. And it's a scene, it's a process to redefine what that means in a way that is not somebody else's definition. We're not doing deja vu anymore. We are really stepping up and growing a spine for our soul that is asking us to really recognize how powerful and how beautiful we are. And when we talk about potential, that is really stepping more into what we already are. You know what I mean? And so it's not far away in the distance. It's like what's in here and what's growing and expanding and becoming more materialized in this new density that we're in, the new era.
Yeah. No, definitely. And so, yeah, and if, right. And so for people that are thinking, well, if with the comment of like people are inherently good and whatever, there are people that you were jiving with before that you may not be jiving with now.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is not that, oh, everything's going to be kumbaya and perfect, and oh, no one at the grocery store is going to cut in front of you, and no one's going to cut you off in traffic, and and you're not going to have a vendor that that doesn't materialize what they deliver, promise to deliver, or you're not going to have a client that says, oh, you know what, I need to be done now, and you weren't expecting that. No, these things are going to happen. It's how you respond to it. Right?
Exactly.
You can respond with grace. You can respond with not giving a crap, right? Like, oh, you cut me off. Oh, it's that important to you, whatever. I'm going to choose not to get swept up in that, and whatever is happening in your day, I don't need to be involved with that.
Right.
With a vendor, they didn't materialize something that they promised. You just let them go. That's easy, and you don't have to get all swept up in it. It's like, you know what? Whatever their thing is,
Right.
it's not your job to resolve their issues or change their business or make sure their business practices are right. It's didn't meet your needs. Have the conversation.
Right.
Client, I mean, I always say to my clients, I would never want you in a container that you felt like you didn't belong in anymore. Ever,
Right. Right.
ever.
Right.
Right? So if that happens to be exactly when our container ends naturally, how beautiful is that? If it's not, no worries.
Yeah, it's, again, that word how, which, points back to how do you operate, how do you operate or how do you process something? The operational aspect is something that may not make logical sense where you have to remediate or whatever, but it does make sense spiritually. So, it's and I feel that that's what's coming forward and becoming more sophisticated, where we start to really treasure our own energy. And yeah, I'm not going to get out of my lane and try to tell that vendor, this is unethical or whatever like that. I don't know, man. That's your story, and you're multidimensional. There's a lot of multiplicity, I'm sure, that's going on in your reality. And really, what I want to thank you for not having the product delivered is an affirmation that I'm holding it together. That is the real reason that why this is happening. And by, holding on and honoring our energy, then the solution that comes out of left field, again, out of the infinite, lands on our lap. And it's like, oh, that that's awesome. So, um, a lot of what I see is operationally is things that were human constructs that were made up by somebody, I don't know who, um, are outdated and unraveling. And in many cases, things that we might have used to weaponize or keep ourselves small against ourselves, we can think of it as we were in a cage and we were the one who built the cage and had the key to the cage. The cage is dissolved and we're finding our way of what that looks like. What does the landscape look like when we don't have to look through it through these bars, the silos, but we can be cohesive? It's a very again, a very tender and emerging process, and I see all kinds of new ecosystems evolving of the new era of these communities where we're adjacent to each other, and it's a joy to cross-pollinate, for a time, for a project perhaps, and then we all grow together, and then just expand from that perspective. It's very organic. It's not theoretical. It's happening on the ground, and all of us are doing so in a way. where we're very true to ourselves. And again, without having to think about it.
Mm, yeah. No, I mean, it's true. I mean, so that's the thing when you think about it. I mean, you said it at the top of the conversation about, we are being called to trust.
Yeah.
We are being called to believe. I think that's my word, not yours. We are being called for the faith. I'm just kind of use all three words, just whichever resonates,
Yeah.
right? And when you think about it, wow, that's where if our mind has a certain expectation or it needs to look exactly like this, or I communicated exactly this,
Yeah.
and yet that is coming. So I said ABC and XYZ is coming, right? And you think, what the literal bleep? What just happened? I mean, I said, July 1st. I'm making it all. I just said July 1st. I said 16 records. I said, blue covers. And I said, this dimension.
Right.
And the person was on August 5th, with like 22 of them that didn't have any cover at all, like, whatever, right? I mean,
Right.
this is the specificity. This is where, it does sound theoretical when we're saying here, oh, like kumbaya trust.
Right.
But no, it's during those times when things are very specific and you can ask yourself, well, how am I responding? How am I showing up?
Yeah.
So, back in 2020, I kept saying to people, like, you get to choose.
Yeah.
You get to say, what am I willing to do and what am I not willing to do?
Right. Right.
Maybe those questions have shifted a little bit to, huh, how am I going to show up for
Right.
me and
Yeah.
for the betterment of this situation or for the betterment of my future self?
Yes. Yeah.
That's not a throwdown with you're an asshat that you didn't deliver me the 16 with the covers on the date. That's more like, wow, maybe I wasn't clear. Maybe I didn't follow up. Maybe okay, we could, kind of do a self-analysis just to a certain degree.
Huh.
And or maybe this relationship needs to either be redefined or end.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite declarative without um being a hard ass about it. It's declarative, that's clear, it rings true, and there's no emotional animation as far as velcro of negativity that kind of follows along with it. And it's you mentioned something really easily of, we might have resonated with certain people in the past and now we're not. And to use kind of like a metaphysical metaphor, it's like timelines are shifting where, we're still on the same timeline, but different manifolds are starting to define where people we used to vibe with, they're still doing their thing, but it just doesn't feel right or it doesn't feel good or you just kind of lose sight of them. And it's not like they disappear anywhere. It's just that they're living and creating a different reality that suits them just fine, which gives us space to, again, define what it is that we want. And that notion of choice is so important. Before we had this or that, A or B, things were quite polarized. And now, again, now that we have this access to the infinite, man, there's many more choices. And so, again, I'll bring it back to your book of giving people this beautiful framework and model to start with so that they don't get swept away and they don't let the calm that's inside of them seep out. They can use and reference the book as a way of like, okay, this is great. And so they can kind of get their bearings within the infinite where that choice that opens up the potential and all the doorknobs and the key that they hold in their hand, which is them, their essence.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Is which doorknob am I going to turn? And it's a very generous thing that you've done through the book because there's a lot of stuff going on, not just what we see in the narratives, but within our own lives with relationships changing because the relationship to our truer essence is expanding and solidifying. So of course that's going to have a ripple effect to relationships and not just with other people, but our relationship with time, with money, where we're knowing now that it's maybe those constructs weren't so accurate, that we're in space where, we can bend time when we start really embracing and trusting our essence, our archetype, our magic, where things happen much more quickly that don't make logical sense, but spiritually, yeah, it totally makes sense. And so it's the activation of spiritual concepts, but in our body, in our lives, so that we can get that immediate evidence.
Mhm.
That's what's happening from my perspective, from what I see.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that because, I've been telling people that time is speeding up, right? Things are gonna move really fast. I've been using the term G-force, and I've been saying that for the next 18 months. Like, hang on to your hats, babe, because we are zoom off to the races. And
Yes.
and I've been saying, like, it's gonna blow your mind, the innovations that are gonna come in, the ideas that are gonna come in, the solutions that are going to be here. And we have a choice, right? Like, back to choice, we have a choice. We can either be in the flow with that
Yeah.
and being true to ourselves so we're on that right trajectory for us, or we can fight it kicking and screaming and saying, "We want things to be the old way," but I know no one listening here wants that to be true.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
specifically for your audience, as leaders, um, no, none of us are recreating the best of the past. We are truly innovating in ways that, as far as I know, have not been done in human form. And so now I'm going to touch again on this metaphysical concept of ascension, of how are we changing, our DNA strands in a way in our physical bodies or our vehicles that hasn't been done before. And it's not ascension of like, oh, there was a rapture and my dirty underwear is on the floor, but I'm up here, on the cloud. It's not like that. What I'm seeing is, again, human beings really coming together, coming into themselves, and creating new things that are beneficial to other human beings. So, startups and entrepreneurs that I hang out with in the LA area are doing things like, um, figuring out on a widespread basis how to make water out of the ether or the air, or finding very specific genomes within somebody's DNA who is experiencing cancer, and how to activate the quote unquote killer cells to eliminate that particular problem spot without having to do like chemo or radiation.
Mhm.
And the whole spirit of what these startups are doing is not to eliminate the existing treatments, but to, again, on the ground, give a viable choice for people to consider. And um, that is the articulation for me of what choice is. It's something that's practical, that's tangible, and really respects the dignity of the other human beings who are in a place of defining what they want,
Mhm.
defining what health means to them. For instance, um, it's simply that, respect and dignity for everybody's uniqueness, whatever their story is and what their soul is articulating to them through perhaps an illness, and giving them a choice. And it came to me like a couple of years ago of this concept of heaven on earth. I thought, oh, that sounds so great. I can't imagine cherubs with harps, flying around LA. But, what it is actually turning out to be is human beings creating something in tangible form that gives choice to other people and doesn't prescribe, "You gotta use this." It's more like, if this resonates, if this makes sense to you, if you don't really aren't a fan of what's already existing, then here's something else. And this competitive type of strategy of winning takes on a different tone, where competitors now become brothers and sisters. They're allies within an ecosystem, and the competition is every offering speaks for itself, And the audience is very specific and nuanced, where somebody might want chemo, for instance, for cancer, for whatever is going on in their ecosystem, whereas something more natural or herbal might appeal to somebody else's story. And it all comes together, where even artificial and organic are trying to figure out, they're dancing right now. And I think for some entrepreneurs that I work with, they're not entirely comfortable with art, like AI, for instance, and others are just running with it like a monkey with a machete, not really understanding the implications of what they're doing. But the thing that is arising, the thing that I see AI gifting us with is for us to really fully develop our sense of wisdom, which is very dynamic, and takes on, a galactic, cosmic, universal perspective, where AI um, is here to help us, help us free our hands with maybe some tasks that are more rote, but the organic aspect, which is us, um, is evolving at an accelerated pace, just like you mentioned. So, um, it's a dance, it's a conversation, and everything is encouraging and supporting us to develop our wisdom, trusting ourselves, knowing our essence, and relying on that 100%, and creating whatever our attention is drawing us to.
I love that. We could talk for 100 years, right? No, 100%.
I love it.
So I know. So, but I'm going to put the pin in, and I know we need to come back and talk about AI, which we will.
Yeah.
But I'm mindful of time, and I want to make sure that the audience, that you've gotten a blush of the magic of joy, right? Which is wonderful. So like me, I'm sure you're like, where and how can I get more? Can anybody reach you on social?
Yeah, currently I just birthed a very sweet Instagram account called
Oh,
Buried Artifacts, and it features my lost wax talismans that I'm making now, new line of business that I'm launching. And I love it because it is using the lost wax technique, but I do it a little bit differently, where I have the wearer hold the wax as I tell these sacred stories about what the artifact wants to share. And then within that, the wearer will share their story, and that essence goes into the wax. And then I will cast that in a precious metal, with the understanding that every time we change form, wax to gold, from corporate associate to entrepreneur, every time we change our form, our magic and our energy expands beyond the previous form. And that is the nature and the law, if there is a law of the universe. That is our nature, to change forms and to do it gracefully and know that we are always beautiful.
I love that. I love that. So we're going to have the ways to contact you in our show notes to make sure that people can get in touch with you, because you, my friend, are beautiful.
You are too. I always love being in your presence, Kim.
Thank you, Joy. Okay, for that, everybody, we're going to wrap up this conversation, but stay tuned, because we're going to come back, I'm sure, at another time. You've been listening to the Strategic Oracle, where success isn't scaled from speed, but from soul. If this stirred something real, follow it. Apply for activation, enter the vault, or pause right here. Integration is leadership too. Because the truth is, you were never meant to chase the timing. You are meant to become it.